What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Emerald Grappling Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Murphy. Today, I'm in the west of Ireland. I'm in Gort for the very first time, and I'm joined by Ellie Hassell-Cramer. For anyone who doesn't know Ellie, she is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, awarded by Symmetry Jiu-Jitsu, and she's the head coach here of BJJ Gort. Ellie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you inviting.
No problem. Thank you for A, accommodating me, and B, agreeing to come on the podcast. Shout out to your parents who actually dropped it in a suggestion box that I put on Instagram. So
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
So for anyone who doesn't know you, maybe you could tell us about yourself, maybe your background and how you got started in jiu-jitsu.
So, my name is Ellie. I started jiu-jitsu when I was about 4 years old. My sister and I actually started with Taekwondo, and there was a guy named Gracie who was teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes out of our Taekwondo gym. And my dad joined that, and he liked it, loved it immediately. So he went, "You're doing this too." So we joined in, and then it became a family affair because my mom, who was pregnant with my younger brother at the time, was like, "I want to do it." So she was kind of chomping at the bit her whole pregnancy. And then as soon as she had him, she started, and as soon as he could walk, he started. So we've all been doing it from a very young age, and I've just been training with them for the rest of my life.
Amazing. So you had quite an early start, 4 years old. And what was it like growing up on the mats with your parents?
Honestly, it was pretty incredible. Like when your whole family shares the same passion, hobby, or anything like that, you really get to have a deep dive into the experience of the sport. It wasn't just like mom drops you off at practice and then picks you up, like my weekends were going to women's grappling camps with my mom or helping my dad set up tournaments. And I was really, really lucky because I got to meet so many of my idols by just traveling around and doing that. So my experience was so well-rounded in getting to do that, I guess. Yeah, it was really excellent. And then the fact that you train with your family as well, you can settle familial disputes, if you will, on the mats. And then we all understood what it was like. So we would all get home from training together at 9 or 10 p.m. and we'd all be tired, but we would all understand why and know. And then shout out to my superhero of a mom because she would still cook us dinner after that. So yeah, it was pretty excellent.
And I'd imagine it was nearly like getting private lessons all the time off your parents growing up.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, we had our basement, we had mats on the floor. So we would train at home as well. And, just when you're a kid, 9 times out of 10, you go attack your parents when they're not looking. So you'd get taken to the woodshed for that and stuff like that. So you always get a little bit of extra help.
That's awesome. And when I was doing my research for this episode, it said that you trained under the Gracie family lineage. Maybe you could tell us more about that lineage, how it influenced your approach to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Of course, yeah. So we as in my family, started training under a gentleman named Gracie. He was directly associated with Charles Gracie. And because my parents loved the sport so much, they got really, really into it, and they started running a kids program for Gary. And because of that, they got really intertwined with Charles Gracie, who became our associate when they opened up their own gym. So like I was saying about the weekends away, we would be going to Charles's for tournaments, setting him up, or he'd be coming to us for seminars. And the Gracie approach to jiu-jitsu is very self-defense oriented. So I'd say that was kind of influential for my jiu-jitsu because everything was given from the perspective of this is what you do in a self-defense scenario. If you're smaller, if you are going against a bigger opponent, if they're trying to punch you, not just like, this is how you take the back and get 4 points. It was always real life scenarios applicable to a kid having fun at the same time. So that was a huge aspect. And then in addition to that too, the kind of traditions that they always have in their gyms, the Gracies, well, some of them anyways, those also heavily influenced us, I'd say. Like things like tying your belt facing the wall and lining up and shaking hands and bowing to pictures of Carlos and Helio and things like that. Those kind of followed through into my parents' gyms as well. And for myself, there was kind of nearly almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost kind of like a sense of sacredness in doing that, because you really had to embody respect and honor and humility every time you stepped onto the mat. And it was kind of doing that, the whole world kind of melts away when you go to jiu-jitsu, because that's what you're there for. And you respect the sport and you respect your training partners and you just have a good time. So those are the things that carried over from the Gracie lineage for me.
Nice. And do you apply that with your own training to this day still?
I do, yes, absolutely. I'm working on building up to getting a few of those things sorted out with my kids. Like I don't unfortunately carry around a picture of Carlos Gracie with me, but once I get settled into my own space, I'm sure I can add in some more of those. But yes, definitely respect and humility and honor are a huge thing that I teach my kids and my adult students as well.
Awesome. I'm just picturing you like casually carrying around like picture frames in your bag as you're like bringing
I
it.
should, huh? But just put it up on the wall or in the corner somewhere.
So with both your parents being third degree black belts and owning their own academies, did you always know that you wanted to open your own gym?
Actually, no, I didn't. I always thought my younger brother was going to be the one to open a gym first. Because he's a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner and he was very into competing, and he's also very business minded. So I always kind of thought he was going to be the one to follow in their footsteps, and he very well may still. But having moved from the States and being here, and like I was saying to you kind of earlier on, I never had to pay for jiu-jitsu my whole life because I trained with my parents at their gym. So it was a little bit of a shock when I moved away and had to pay myself. And when you're in college and you're eating cup of noodles, it's a little pricey. So once I finally got here and more established, my husband pointed out, he's like, well, if you want jiu-jitsu in your life, you're a great coach, you might as well just start teaching. And I went, you're a genius. You're a genius. That is the best way. If I run it myself, then it's perfect. And I absolutely love it. And it's been ingrained in me since I was this big. So I just know it through and through, and I'm comfortable in it. And I gain like significant satisfaction over helping people learn jiu-jitsu. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we always need someone that's like of sound mind like that to give us that guidance, or maybe even that little nudge, like go chase it if you want it.
Yeah.
Start it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be scared. Just do it. Why not?
Yeah, do it scared. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
It all works out in the end. And as you were saying, you have how many years experience teaching kids?
Over 10.
Over 10 years.
Over 10, yeah.
And in your opinion, what is kind of the biggest difference between coaching maybe a child and coaching an adult?
You really have to adjust for the mental, emotional, and physical capacity that the age requires. So with an adult, they're going to have more physical stamina. They're going to have more mental and more emotional stamina than a 5-year-old. For a 5-year-old, most of them can't last past 45 minutes of like learning. So with adults, you can cover a lot more bases very quickly. But with the kids, if you just give them the fundamentals and the basics, they'll develop really, really quickly on their own as well without having to get into the technicalities. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is you really just have to adjust for what they're capable of doing and then still provide them with a good foundation, and they'll take off from there.
So when you're coaching different age groups, just say maybe a group of 5-year-olds compared to a group of 12-year-olds, what are the key differences in how you structure a class or communicate with those students?
It's very similar to, I guess, the answer to my last question as well. You do have to adjust for their mental, physical, and emotional capabilities. But for the little kids especially, it's been proven that kids learn 12 times quicker through play than through repetition alone. So when we have our kids class, 90% of our learning is actually just through jiu-jitsu games, where they can really develop those fundamentals and learn how to move their body while having a good time and giggling. And it makes such a huge difference in how, when you turn around and you say, okay, now go grapple, they're doing stuff that they don't even realize they're doing, because they are just aware of how to move themselves in the right ways and things like that. For older kids, you have to give them a little bit more substance, I guess, in that. You have to give them a challenge, because if you just said, okay, go play this game, there's always going to be that one kid who's just bored out of their mind with the game. You have to give them more of a challenge. So I like to give them more individual challenges rather than a group one. And you can give them a little bit more technique. But as long as you're stimulating that interest, whether it's technical, whether it's competitive, or whether it's just like physical, that kind of depends on the child alone. But if you give them something to latch on to, they're good. And then as well, you can't talk to the big kids like they're little. They'll look at you like this. Why are you patronizing me? So you got to meet the kid where they are. And if they're 12, they want to be treated like an adult, but still have the capability of being a young kid. So that's I think the main difference between those age groups.
Maybe you could run us through how you would run a normal class. Like you were saying about integrating the games with the kids. Maybe you could take us through the structure of how you do your kids' classes.
Of any age group.
Any age group.
Any age group.
Your favorite age group.
Okay. Let's say we'll go with the littlest kids, the 5 to 7 year old class. They are hilarious and super fun and super giggly and sweet. For them, I don't do more than 45 minutes just because they don't have the mental or physical capacity to do that. And we always start with we bow in, we get ready, we show a little bit of respect, we do our warm up, and it's usually something like follow the leader, where we get some running in, get some energy out, and then we'll follow that into relay races, and they'll be jiu-jitsu themed relay races. So they have a bit of competitiveness because it goes team against team, and they're still warming up at the same time. So they'll be doing forward rolls, shrimps, crab walks, bear crawls, things like that. And then we take a break, get some water, and then we bring it in, and we'll usually play a couple of positional guard games, or not guard specifically, positional games, depending on what we're learning each month. So we have a very popular game that they all like. It's called Crab Attack, where we all just crab walk around on the mats, but the goal is to pass guard and get to mount. So you can crab walk over to somebody and then grab them and then get to mount. You hold it for 3 seconds, move on. The person with the most points, who's gotten past the guard and mounted so many times, wins. So they love things like that, and that's good with helping guard defense. It's good with helping them learn how to pass, and it's still a grappling scenario, but it's also just mostly about fun. So we'll play a few games like that, and then we'll get into the technique once they've gotten all the wiggles out. And we keep the technique very short and to the point, so no more usually than like 3 or 4 steps for how it works. And then they go off with their partner, do the technique. We'll come back in. Sometimes we do 2 techniques if we've got the time. And they'll build on itself from the week prior. So they're kind of gaining a little bit of linearity as they go. Then we will grapple, and we usually do a grappling game. So we've got a few, like ambush is a very, very popular one with them. Everybody starts, sorry, not everybody. There'll be like 3 or 4 people down grappling, and then there will be the rest of them on the wall. And then when we say go, whoever's on the wall can pick whoever they want to grapple, grab them, and then the person that they were previously grappling with has to go on the wall, and they rotate in and out like that. So they really enjoy that one, or we also have a few others that we'll do. And then we always finish with a game of just nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. So sharks and minnows, tag. So we have statue, tug of war, things like that. And then, that's how class would go for that age group.
Awesome. I actually was standing watching in as you were finishing up your last class here, and all the kids were running around, and it looked like they were having like the time of their life. So they were clearly playing the games, but you can tell they have like the enthusiasm. as well. And even when I was standing there, one of the parents was asking me why I was here, and I was like, oh, I'm actually here to do a podcast with Ellie. And he was like, oh, Ellie's great, the kids absolutely love her. So
Thanks.
it's a great compliment to get, and it's great because it shows they're having fun, they're learning jiu-jitsu, but most importantly, it's all about the fun aspect. Because kids will do something, but once they don't find it anyway fun, they go.
Exactly. And I think it's pretty awesome too, like with jiu-jitsu, that they're learning practical life skills at the same time. So, like whether it's learning self-defense when they come on the mat, which is a huge bonus, whether it's learning how to regulate their emotions through grappling, like there's nothing better in my opinion than being stuck in mount and having to figure out how to deal with that. It gets really frustrating, but you learn how to do that here. So emotional regulation, self-defense, and then as well, like the thing I just kind of hope most for is that when they come here, they go, okay, I'm at jiu-jitsu. I don't have to worry about anything else. Bad day earlier doesn't exist. What are you talking about? I'm at jiu-jitsu now.
And you were saying you have 10 years experience coaching kids, which is awesome. And for anyone that might be thinking about starting their own kids program in their gym, what advice would you give other coaches for starting their own kids program?
Well, definitely, like I was saying earlier, make sure you adjust for the age group. But other than that, I would do some research into understanding different learning types. Because there's visual, there's kinesthetic, there's auditory, tactual. If you can identify how that kid learns, you're going to be significantly more successful with it, because you could be talking to a kid who's kinesthetic and going, okay, see how you do this and you do this, and you're just trying to get them to watch you, and they're not paying attention because that's not how they're going to understand that information. But as soon as you do the move on them and then say, okay, see how that felt, you do it, they can do it no problem. So if you can learn about those and identify how those kids learn, it's going to help significantly. So I'd say that would be a huge help.
So you've been running BJJ Gort for how long now?
7 months.
7 months.
7 months now.
And how are you balancing your own training during this time?
Not well. If I'm being honest, not well. I try my best to go train as often as I can, but I have quite a hectic schedule outside of jiu-jitsu as well. So the ideal would be able to sneak in twice a week, but right now I'm kind of once every 2 weeks. But the more that I build this and the better that it gets, and the more the rest of my life calms down, I'm sure I'll be able to get back into training myself a bit more, because it makes a huge difference being able to train on your own for yourself, not just teaching.
Yeah, you were saying off camera how you play rugby, you surf, you're doing jiu-jitsu, and coaching as well. So like, it's where are you getting the time?
Sparingly. Sparingly. It's kind of like on the day, oh, I got time, I'm gonna go in,
Yeah. And when you're doing like your adult classes, are you getting training in as well, or are you just like focused on the coaching aspect there?
I'm definitely focused more on the coaching aspect, but I do try as best as I can. At the end, we always, we end our class with a grapple for the adults class. I always try my best to pick one thing to focus on when I'm grappling and try and, pull that off as many times as possible, or figure it out in a live grappling scenario rather than being able to drill it. So I try my best to do that as much as I can, and I've got some really, really scrappy teens and adults that are way bigger than me that, it makes it worthwhile doing. So it's perfect.
You had mentioned about the Gracie lineage and the self-defense element. Maybe you could elaborate how you incorporate the self-defense aspect into your classes.
Yeah, of course. I've got something I'm working towards doing as well, which I'll mention in just a second. Once I implement that, it'll be even better. But as of right now, I always try and explain, just like I was taught as a kid, I always try to explain how the move I'm teaching would be applicable in a self-defense scenario if it is. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, last month we learned the pendulum sweep. And that one's really great for if someone's trying to punch you in the face. If they're in your guard, they try and punch you in the face. whoop, slide their arm across, pendulum sweep, you're on top. And you're in a much better, safer scenario. So I do my best to try and do things like that. And then I also sprinkle in real life scenarios as much as possible. And then with the little kids, I've been able to add in a bit more, and I'm looking to do what my parents do, which is at the beginning of every class for their gym, they have the kids do a buy-in, which is a self-defense move in particular. So whether it's a wrist release or escaping, a bear hug or a headlock, they have to do that before they're allowed on the mat. So I'm working towards adding that in, but a lot of my kids, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're doing our fundamentals first, and once we get caught up on the fundamentals, we'll add that in too. But for them too, I do pepper in when we're doing takedowns, how to escape from a headlock, how to get your wrists free, things like that. And then I mention as well, if an adult ever tries to grab you, I make it kid appropriate and pepper those things in. And then the main thing too is, telling them to be super vocal. Like, scream that you are not my mom, you are not my dad, or stop, things like that. And I force them to do it. And sometimes they don't like it, but some of them love it. They'll be like, stop, at the top of your lungs, which in here is kind of crazy. So yeah, I try and add that in as much as I can. But I think it really hits home for the women's, especially, because a lot of them come in more for self-defense than the sport itself, which is entirely understandable. So when I'm teaching them to, in particular, sometimes I'll pull them aside and say, hey, okay, this is an extra thing you can do for those real life scenarios. This is how you can get their hand out of your hair if they're trying to drag you across the floor, things like that.
And I actually seen you have advertised you're doing a women's self-defense course coming up.
I am, yes, next week.
Perfect. And if anyone is kind of interested, maybe they're on the fence, maybe you could outline some of the things that you'll be covering so that people will have a better understanding of it.
Of course, yeah. Well, we're going to start with talking a little bit about statistics and how the real life scenario is going to work, right? And unfortunately for women, the case is that we are smaller and weaker in stature 9 times out of 10. So you really do have to create the correct kind of mindset for it. And that mindset being, if I'm stuck in this scenario, I want to know that my body is going to do what I tell it to, because we are going to respond in one of 3 ways: fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm going to try as hard as I can to help those women develop the fight version of that reaction. And then as far as the physical techniques that we're going to learn, we're going to do a lot of stuff I already mentioned. We're going to start with wrist releases. We're going to start all standing. We're going to talk about how to get out of being strangled, how bear hugs, headlocks, all of those things. And then we'll also talk about stuff on the ground after that, because 80% of fights in the real world are going to end up on the ground. So that's kind of where we would go with that.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a niece. She's 12, and as much as I try to get her to do jiu-jitsu, she won't. But I do sprinkle in little things like that. Like, I would walk up and I just grab her. I'm like, what would you do if someone did that? And her new one is Wristlocks. So she loves to slap on a wristlock, and it's just you'll release, and then she pushes you away. And I think that's kind of important even for kids and women in particular, because this world is going crazy with everything that's happening. And every gym probably should have either a women's self-defense class or just a self-defense class in general.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Anyone who is completely new maybe to martial arts or in jiu-jitsu, what would you say is the most important self-defense lesson that they can take away from doing it?
Prevention is more important than anything else. Being aware of your surroundings on a daily basis is going to make or break your safety. So that meaning, don't be walking down the street with your headphones in, looking at your phone by yourself, like any of those things. It happens broad daylight, it happens at night, but having the back of your head going, okay, maybe I shouldn't walk down this particular dark lit street by myself. Maybe I shouldn't have headphones in while I'm walking down. Or I see that group of guys over there that's giving me a little bit of something in my stomach? listen to the stomach. The prevention is more important than that. And then in line with that, it's about how you carry yourself. I had seen an interview where some guy had interviewed a ton of rapists, basically. Hope it's okay to say that. Yeah, a ton of rapists that were in jail, and child predators included. What they looked for out of their victims. And a lot of it is shy, weak, easy to pick off, the ones that are a little bit outcast from society maybe, or so. If you're downtrodden and walking and nervous and scared, that's going to come off to a predator. And there's predators that plan, and then there's also opportunists. So if you carry yourself with, head held high, chest, and you're aware of your surroundings, you're going to already be deterring someone. So you have more power just by existing than you think, right? It's not just, I can't stop this scenario. Sure, you might not be able to. It's unfortunately, it's a very common and high statistic to be attacked, especially as, believe it or not, it's even more popular for boys to be attacked than women, or than girls. So I think developing the mental side of it is probably the biggest thing. It's more of a deterrent than anything else. And then knowing how to handle yourself after the fact, if it does happen, that's what I try to teach.
Incredible. And for anyone who might be listening who's in the Galway, the Gort area, I will be putting down in our description about your self-defense classes and jiu-jitsu classes, because it is very important for people to know how to defend themselves, even if it's just that distance management.
Agreed, yeah.
So important. Like if you can keep someone arm's length away, you're less likely to either probably get attacked or, anything bad happen. And it gives you that opportunity to run.
Yes, exactly. Or, what was it? The quicker you get away, the better your chances are for survival.
Yeah. And with jiu-jitsu, it does build your cardio. So it's another added benefit. So you'll be able to keep running and running.
Absolutely.
Beyond the technical skills, what do you hope your students, especially the kids, take away from their time on the mats that they can use in their everyday lives?
Well, I shouldn't have said what I said earlier, because I have a very similar answer to one of the questions you previously said. I really, really hope that they take away that when they come on the mat here, there's, it's just jiu-jitsu. This is a place where they can come and they can be vulnerable with each other, because you're putting yourselves in vulnerable situations doing jiu-jitsu. And because you're accepting of that and okay being in those vulnerable positions, you're going to create emotional resilience. Like I was saying before about, you get stuck in mount for 5 minutes, you're sitting there going, oh my God, but the more you do it, the more you go, okay, I'm calm in this. I'm calm. It's just a waiting game. I can figure it out. It's all good. Wait for my opportunity. The same applies to life. So I really hope that they grow the confidence in their mental and emotional resilience, as well as knowing that this is always a place that they can come to practice that.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
It's very common for jiu-jitsu to create nearly like a sense of community. And I'd imagine as you're saying, you're originally from the US and now you've moved over. And I'd say it's great having this community aspect now in Gort when you're training. Yeah. What's your favorite part of jiu-jitsu when it comes to that aspect? Would you like me to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay, perfect. So I find when I started training jiu-jitsu, I was very shy. But now some of my best friends also train jiu-jitsu. So it's given me the outlet to make friends and given me the confidence to walk into any gym where I know this is my community because we all do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think my answer would be kind of similar, to be honest, because when I first decided that this was something that I wanted to do, part of it was because I wanted jiu-jitsu to be, I've wanted jiu-jitsu to be in my life my entire life, and I knew that it was going to be. So like I said, my husband said, why don't you just do it yourself? So I did. And the follow-up to that as well was I saw kind of, see a need, fill a need. There was no jiu-jitsu here at all before I said that. So I had gone to Indra Davis in Shaolin MMA in Galway, and I had said to her, hey, look, I'm thinking of opening up a gym. Do you have any advice? Like, I'm just trying to build a connection. And for those of you who don't know, Indra is from Gort herself. So they travel and commute. And she was nothing but incredibly supportive. Still to this day is incredibly supportive. She always, offers me advice, and she shows up if I ask her to. Like, she's come to a seminar my dad put on. She offered to help me with my women's self-defense course. Just knowing that I can walk into, literally, like you said, walk into any gym and say, hey, like, I need a little bit of help. And they're always going to be like, yeah, absolutely. Now, there's gyms that don't do that. And you just have to go, okay, never mind. I'm going to try a different one. However, 9 times out of 10, it's usually a good experience.
Yeah, everyone will welcome you with open arms.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe just one gym or two in particular that don't. But, like, look, it happens in every sport.
Exactly. There's always going to be somebody. But, you have your head on and you'll know. You'll know.
So you said you started training when you were 4. So you've been in the sport for quite a while now. What has been the biggest change that you've seen in the sport community over the years?
I think because I grew up in the Gracie lineage as well, watching the development of technical guard players really increase in popularity, it was kind of a big change. Like, when I was growing up, like, we weren't even allowed to do submissions below the waist until you got a blue belt. And, being a kid, you have to wait till you're 16. So it was just like a completely different kind of world. And I will say it's still a gap in my game, because, I didn't have that much development. Like, I know how they work, I know how to do them, but it's just not as natural, I guess. But yeah, I'd say that would be kind of the biggest thing. And then that, and watching it now become like a professional sport is kind of cool. Like the UFC, BJJ stuff coming about and all that. It's definitely that, like that. And I think as well, just the increase in popularity. Like, I know it took off after Hoist was in the UFC, for sure, in the States anyways. But it's like, there's just so much more now. It's insane how much more there is. And yeah, like, I'd say that really, that's the biggest thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I've only been training 7 years myself, and even the growth here in Ireland has been nuts. Like, every town seems to have a gym now, or if it's not this town, there's like a town next to you that will have it. And it's great seeing so many more people training and having the opportunity to cross train with more people, because we were saying off camera that that's something I do a lot of, and you were saying that you go into Shaolin once or twice a week, and you're getting your training.
Try to.
Well, you try. That's the main thing. But
Try to.
You're trying to, and that's the main thing. You're putting the effort into it. So it's great seeing all these opportunities and the community growing. And it's even great when you see the likes of AOJ in the States, like the way their kids programs, like you see them winning Pans, Worlds. And I think it's even one of the Mendez kids, like Ace, he's like 7 years old. And I'm just like, that kid is much better at jiu-jitsu than me.
Insane. Well, like, the level that yellow belts are now are pretty much orange belts from when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, there wasn't anybody to compete against at that level, so you kind of got stuck in that level of progression, because so I got my orange belt when I was 12, I think. There was nobody to compete against anymore. So I either had to go with the boys 2 weight divisions up, or just there was nothing. There was no competing. And then when I got my green belt, then there was really nothing. There was like maybe once in a blue moon one girl close-ish to my size who would be the same. And that's one of the reasons I kind of stopped competing, to be honest, because I was like, I don't really want to grapple like this. And it would always be, max 3 people in the bracket. So the level is huge, and because there's so much bigger of a pool now, for kids to go against, they get so good because competition changes your grappling for sure so much, and it's insane. It's really cool.
It is. And is competition something that you'd like to see your students do?
Absolutely. They're losing their mind waiting for me to say, okay, let's go to this one. They ask me about it all the time. They're really excited to try it out.
Awesome. And will you be competing yourself?
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a swing. I haven't done it in a while, and I think it's important as a coach to better your own jiu-jitsu, and that includes in the competition realm. Like, you got to walk the walk, and I haven't competed since I was about 12, so the world of jiu-jitsu has changed so much, and I'm, several different belts different now, so I got to test my mettle, see what I got.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing you compete. Hopefully it's a competition that I'll potentially be at, but you'll have me standing in the corner just like waving you on like, let's go.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And I have this reoccurring question that I like to ask everyone, but where do you see the future of jiu-jitsu going?
Okay, so I have an interesting answer, and I'm going to make sure it's 100% PC. I think that with how it's going to be, like how it's developing into a professional sport, I think that it's because of that, it's going to get really, really hard on the competition being, you submit, you win. And that's where kind of technical guard players really, really shine, because you get submissions quick and things like that. But because of that, I kind of think that there's going to be resurrection's not quite the right word, but I think there's going to be kind of a roundabout way of bringing back in more of the Gracie kind of way in the self-defense aspect, because I think that it's almost two different kinds of grappling. One's not better than the other. I just do think that they're kind of different, because the flow is different, the intent is different, and so yeah, I kind of think that that's what's going to happen. There's going to come around. It's going to come full circle, and then when that enters into the professional competitive world, hopefully, anyway, it's and they start blending and kind of evening up. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it's as you were saying, it's like two kind of like separate sports in itself. There's like the self-defense, and then there's the sport jiu-jitsu. So you'd like to see them kind of like interesting.
Yeah, I think, well, I hope that's what happens anyways, because I think it would be good to have the kind of grappling you do for the self-defense in with the competition that's gonna make some really good grappling to watch, in my opinion. But who knows? I could be wrong.
No, you never know. Stranger things has happened like with the sport. So
True.
And it's great seeing how many people are joining it, and like that professionalism to it as well. Like it's grown so much in such a short space of time. So exciting times ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed.
Ellie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been great, and shout out to your parents for suggesting you for coming onto the podcast. But for anyone who may be in the Gort, maybe Galway area, and maybe they're interested in dropping in, getting some training, where is the best place to reach you online?
You can either email us at bjjgort@gmail.com, or go to our website. We've got links to sign up for classes, how to contact us, and more. So I'd say our website or email would be the best way.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include all that information in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast and you're listening to the audio version, I'd greatly appreciate if you could give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're watching the video version, I'd greatly appreciate if you could like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to come on the podcast, maybe you know someone you'd like to see on the podcast, reach out to me on Instagram and we'll get that started. And Ellie, I have one last question for you today.
Of course, yeah.
So if there's any parents listening to this and maybe they're considering enrolling their kids in jiu-jitsu, what are the key benefits you would highlight for them?
Increased confidence, increased focus, and increased resilience. I think those are the 3 main things that you'll find when you enroll your kids in jiu-jitsu. It's more than just self-defense. It is... They say, it's more than self-defense, it's a lifestyle. It is, but that lifestyle kind of builds you as a human.
Amazing. And it's a great note to leave the podcast on.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. And again, thank you for joining me.
Right back at you, thanks.